Hello everyone, this is Liam, the Deaf Doom Metalhead, and today I'm doing a very unique video, I think it's unique anyway, of 10 quality second full-length albums from bands. So this is kind of like this I kind of thought of the other day because I was listening to a mixture of different albums, and I realised all of them were the second album in the band's discography. So I thought, that's something I've never done before, is pick 10 really good second albums from bands. You know, it could be from death metal, doom metal, generic heavy metal, you know, stuff like that I really like. And I thought, if I do this list, you can then check these albums out if you haven't, and you'll get something out of it. So it's not like a top 10 of the first one's the best one and 10th's all right. You know, these are just 10 quality albums from bands' discographies that I think you should check out. They're all the second album. So first one is an American death metal band that kind of paved the way, along with Impetigo, for the kind of sound bites in especially for death metal, like with the horror themes. Like, you know, there's a bazillion bands that do it now, but the very early 90s, there's only a few bands that I can think of that were even doing it, and one of them is the Mighty Mortician. This is their second album, because it's obviously all about second albums. Chainsaw Dismemberment, that's the word, isn't it? I would say disembowelment then. So, I mean, all their albums are very similar. I mean, they've been around since the very early late 80s. Yeah, late 80s, not early 90s, late 80s. Will Rama, who's the founding member of the band. I think there's only ever been two guys in the band. One guy joined, I think, in '91, and they've been going ever since. And it's just fucking brutal, no nonsense, in your face death metal. It's very intense. This album cover for me especially, I have lots of fond memories of this, because when I used to go around my mate Dan's house, who's a singer in my band Consecration, he used to have the t-shirt of this on his wall in the kitchen. He had like a collage of like band t-shirts, and he made them all into this massive like piece on the wall of his kitchen for whatever reason. And I always remember this one sticking out the most, because he had young children as well, and I used to always find it really funny that he had this on the wall when they're eating their breakfast. So yeah, a bit random, but yeah, a fucking quality band if you like your brutal heavy. I mean, all their albums aren't too exotic. I mean, I wouldn't say musically they are like pushing the envelope for new, you know, arranged styles. I mean, I'm fairly sure there's programmed drums on this, maybe, in some of their albums anyway. And sound bites galore. So if you're a massive horror movie fan, you'll obviously love all that. I'm not a massive horror movie fan, but I don't know, this album always has a weird charm to me, and I've got a lot of fond memories of it for what random reasons. So yeah, my first pick is Mortician. Second is some German funeral doom. These boys are amazing. I saw these guys live, I think in 2014, around that time, and they blew me away how good they were. They went on the same time as the festival as Cannibal Corpse. I chose to see these guys because I've seen Cannibal Corpse 100 times. And that is the mighty Ahab with their second album, which is called The Divinity of Oceans. It came out in 2000. And 2009, so a long while ago now in my head. So this band they kind of teeter on latter albums. They're obviously very different now, but they are very much a doom band, and they have this kind of disembowelment style to them as well, and they're just fucking brutally heavy, but then they can also make it very beautiful, very tranquil, was that a word? And really chilled out as well, because he does clean vocals on this as well as growls. Mostly on these the older albums, it's more of a death metal growl with some kind of clean singing, and as they went on, they kind of softened up a little bit. But this is my favourite by theirs any day of the week, and it's an absolute stonker of an album. Like, all the songs here are great, but I would say Tombstone Carousel, I'll leave links down below for my favourite tracks off each album. It's fucking brilliant. I absolutely love it, and it's a fantastic band. So if you've never checked out Ahab, probably my pick. Everyone will say the debut as well. That's probably the most chosen album by these guys, but for me it'll always be this one. So yeah, Ahab is my second pick. Third pick is a band that are no longer around. Sadly, the singer died. The mighty LG Petrov of Entombed fronted this band for all three albums they did. Quality Swedish death metal, but with more of a modern twist on it. And that was the project Firespawn. This is their the album The Reprobate that came out in 2017. Yeah, and like I said, it had LG Petrov on vocals, and to me, when he was in Firespawn at the time, all three albums, he sounded absolutely fantastic on them. They were really clear, really heavy, fucking catchy songs, and this album as well is fucking fantastic. All three of them are absolutely brilliant. I can't fault any of their albums. They only did 3 sadly, and I think an EP as well. There is a picture of the band there. You've got this chap here as a drummer in like Deeds of Flesh. I think he was also live drummer for Necrophobic. This fella here is the guitarist from Unleashed. This chap here was a bass player in Necrophobic at one period. And this stand here, I think his name's Victor. He was in bands like Entombed when they got back together. Entombed AD, I think he was in. He's also been in, I think, Dimmy Ball Gear at one point as well. Tons and tons of bands. I think even Satyricon at one point live. So really strong pedigree of musicians, and the band as well, very technical, because you've got the obviously Unleashed guitarist in there writing some ridiculous riffs with some fantastic solos. And yeah, just an absolute band that were amazing, and I'm gutted I never saw them live when they were gigging quite heavily when they were together. So yeah, if you've never checked out Firespawn, all 3 albums are fantastic, but as the second album goes, you won't get many better than that. And you also got the Paolo Griardi artwork as well. Fantastic. My 4th pick is some Finnish Doom Death. I absolutely adore this band. Latter albums a bit meh, but their early stuff is fantastic, and their second album to me is still my favourite out of their whole discography. And that is Swallow the Sun with Ghosts of Loss. This came out back in 2005, and an album I have very, very fond memories of. Discovered this maybe a few years after it came out, and that's when I first initially got into the band back then. Just after I finished high school, maybe 2005, I think it was 2004, something like that. And then I discovered this album a few years later on, and yeah, absolutely killer band. And the melodies and stuff like that are just absolutely gorgeous. Every song on here is amazing. Debut was really strong, and I really enjoyed that album. But when this one came out and I discovered it, I've never ever found one that kind of compares to it in their discography. It's always been this one. It's just my go-to Swallow the Sun album if I ever want to listen to their music. And yeah, absolutely fantastic. Loads of quality songs on here. Some really gloomy, proper melodic ones. And yeah, absolutely fantastic. You got some tits on the cover, so what more do you want? So yeah, some Swallow the Sun. And this one's obviously a bit different. I don't normally show this kind of music, but it is just heavy metal from the metal god himself. Now, when he was in Judas Priest, Mr. Rob Halford, he left them, I think, in '92 and decided to form a kind of groove thrash project in the kind of vein of Cro-Mags, and that was the band Fight. And this is their second album from 1995 called A Small Deadly Space. And I think it had the 2 guitar players from a band called Cyanide, not the death metal band, but like a kind of thrash metal band, or like a traditional heavy metal band from the US. And it was like kind of like a Pantera-esque, Cro-Mag style not death metal, heavy metal with kind of like a thrash vibe to it, but also kind of punk vibe to it as well. Rob Halford's vocals on it. And I discovered, I can't remember how I found out about this band, or even how I found this album out. I forget now, it was a while ago. But I remember hearing the song Human Crate, which is I think it's maybe the second from last track off this album, and the slowest one off the whole thing, probably why I liked it so much, because I'm obviously a bit of a doomy nerd. And it's just heavy, chunky, riffy, and you got Rob Halford with some fantastic vocals on there. And I just loved it, and I absolutely adored it. And then I just discovered all the other songs from the band. It's just a really heavy album, but in a more of a just your hard rock kind of metal way. It's not ultra heavy and chunky guitars or anything like that. The last song might be, but the rest of it is just high energy. It's got some groovy bass lines in there, a bit funky, and yeah, very, very different to what I would normally listen to. And obviously with Rob Halford and Judas Priest, you get a certain style, you listen to Priest, but this sounds nothing like Judas Priest. It even has what was his name, Scott Travis, the drummer of Judas Priest, in this band as well. So he's the drummer for these albums. So you kind of get that Priest vibe a little bit, maybe, because it's Rob Halford, but it really doesn't sound anything like Judas Priest. It's definitely like a Cro-Mags inspired project. So yeah, Fight with A Small Deadly Space. Now, you may have heard of this band, you may have not. Some Dutch Death Doom from the 90s. This came out in '95, and they only ever did 2 albums. And this is Beyond Belief with Rave the Abyss. Now, this was a band that was formed from ex-members of Asphyx and Deadhead, if you know them, from Holland. and is very much in the vein of Asphyx's early style anyway. It's very doomy, very ploddy, Celtic Frost vibes especially, and it's very chunky, very raw, aggressive, primitive sounding. This is a reissue that came out a few years ago from Hammerheart, and yeah, fucking amazing band. And because I love Celtic Frost, Asphyx, all that kind of thing, it was a band I naturally was drawn to. And again, they only ever did 2 albums, and this is the one from 1995. I think the other one came out in 1992, maybe the first one. So yeah, if you have never checked out Beyond Belief, they are very much a cult band. Not many people I've ever heard talk about these boys. So go give them a listen if you haven't, because it's good, solid 90s doomy death metal. Now something a little bit more modern. This band are absolutely fucking fantastic. Finnish death metal. This is their second album, 2017, and that is Gorephilia. With what's this album called? Severed Monolith, something like that. And oh, fantastic band. This was the album just before the vocalist died, I believe, by memory, and then the next album, the guitarist took over the vocals. But this is fucking fantastic. Really guttural, ultra heavy death metal. It's got blasts for days, riffs for days, has everything you could ever want. It's proper Finnish death metal. So I absolutely adore Finnish death metal, one of the best kind of countries for that kind of extreme music. And this is a band that are not shy of that at all. I have some of their earlier albums as well, and EPs. I don't think I actually have the first album, no. I have this one and then the next full length. But there is an EP in there I've got. And this is just brilliant. Killer, about 42 minutes long of just no nonsense, straightforward, in your face death metal with killer riffs, wicked guitar solos. It has everything. So yeah, if you've never checked out Gorephilia, please do, because they're an absolutely killer band, and this is an absolutely fantastic album, easily their best for me. And what a second album that was. Now this one is some epic doom. I love epic doom. I adore Candlemass and, you know, Solitude Eternus, all that kind of style, Solstice, you know, you name it. So these Swedes are close to me to kind of Candlemass-esque, proper epic doom. And this is the band Below. This is their, I believe, 2017 album, Upon a Pale Horse. They've only ever done 2 so far. I don't think they've done a 3rd one. And these Swedes are brilliant. Really heavy, epic doom with some kind of really soaring high vocal style with the kind of vein of Tony Martin era Black Sabbath, and which kind of Dio-esque maybe a little bit, but it's kind of definitely in that Tony Martin era Black Sabbath, which have just, funny enough, just re-released all the albums, or re-released all the albums, should I say. And it's just absolutely killer, really heavy, really chunky, very much in the Candlemass vein with the riffs, very like 1, 2, 3 on the fretboard with your big opens and stuff like that. Really technical, proficient solos, as all Swedish bands seem to be able to do. And yeah, again, a fantastic band. Out of the 2, this is definitely the one I'd go for if you want to listen to this band. Their other album's really good, the first one, but this kind of edges it. It's got higher production, and it was put out through old Metal Blade Records as well. So I think they had a bit more money to play with when they recorded it. So yeah, Below, go give them a whirl. They're fantastic. Last 2. So this one is some Dutch death metal, one of my favourite death metal bands ever. Love this band. And that is Gorefest with their second album, False. Probably put them on the map and made them absolutely massive when this came out. This came out in 95 as well. And an absolutely amazing band. Did, I think, 5 or 6 albums, and they called it a day. Maybe 7 albums, I can't really remember. Of just quality death metal. I mean, they kind of lost their way midway and kind of went Thin Lizzy-esque. I think shortly after the 3rd album. It was the 4th album that was a bit bizarre. But this second album kind of carries on from the first one, because the first one's very primitive, very sludgy, doomy death metal, but it's got that fast bits in there. Whereas this one is your no-nonsense, chunky, heavy death metal with very, very catchy songs. And yeah, a fantastic band that are no longer around anymore, but everybody I know who likes death metal likes Gorefest. So yeah, one of those albums that you cannot not have in your collection. And lastly, out of my 10 favourites, Sophomore albums. I don't even know how you pronounce the word for this video. But this band, when it was announced back in like 2010, 2011, it was a project I was really, really excited about. The main man behind it, Gregor of Paradise Lost, he lost his father to, I think, cancer maybe, or something like that. And wanted to kind of channel his mourning into music. So at the time, I think Paradise Lost to put out Tragic Illusion album. And around that period, they were kind of very soft, very frilly kind of Paradise Lost. They were good albums in a way, but they weren't the Paradise Lost of old, should we say. So he did this project, Vallenfyre, and their first album that came out in 2011 was fantastic. And then they put this one out in 2014 and kind of upped the ante a bit. Really, really heavy band. It's just got, like I said, Gregor of Paradise Lost pretty much writing what now Paradise Lost can do now. They do that kind of heavy Death Doom style a little bit more now, but back then they weren't really doing it. And he was putting it all in this band. It's got Hamish, who was at the time in My Dying Bride, who's now obviously starting his own project called Godfrim, on other guitars. So you kind of had that doomy, death kind of guitar duo. And then you had Adrian, I forget his surname, who was the drummer for At the Gates. At the time, he was also the Paradise Lost drummer, but he's since gone back to At the Gates. And a Zero G drummer as well, I believe. So he's on this. Then a guy called Scoot on the bass, who was the bass player in a band who was signed to Peacefield called Doom, if you remember them, kind of cross-punk band. So he's the bass player. And yeah, it's kind of got that kind of HM2-esque kind of tone to it. I don't think it is HM2, but I could be wrong. But it's definitely got that vibe to it. It's very, very buzzsaw. And I think the third album, before they disbanded, it was very much a cross-punk band at that point. Very thrashy, very fast. Whereas this is doomy, but it has those fast songs in there as well. So if you never check them out, go give them a whirl. They no longer exist. They did split ways. I think he then formed Strigoi with a chap who I do know who lives not too far from me, but I cannot remember his name. Chris Casket, something like that anyway. But yeah, I diverse. So yeah, check out Vallenfyre. Fucking amazing project. So yeah, there's my 10 kind of second full-length albums that you need to have in your collection. Well, I feel you should have them in your collection, or at least check them out and let me know what you think. Links will be below to all I've spoken about. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and let YouTube know I'm alright. And if you are new to the channel and you kind of want to know more what I do and what I talk about, I will leave links to various videos you might be interested in. And then yeah, check them out, and then I'll speak to you guys in the comment section. Cheers.